Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello, it's Alexi. Hi, how's it going, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back to In Sync with Alexi, your new favorite podcast exploring politics, pop culture, and personal growth. I'm your host, award-winning journalist Alexi McCamond, and I am so glad you guys are here. I really appreciate those of you who left me new reviews and ratings last time, because when I asked for help, I got so many more reviews. So thank you guys, and a reminder to please leave me a rating, a review. 5 stars would be great, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm asking for your help because when you think about when you're going to buy something or when you're looking for something new to listen to or to watch, if you see that it has 5 stars but only 13 reviews, are you going to choose that one over the podcast that has 5 stars and 700 reviews? You know what I mean? So I'm very grateful for the 13 of you who have left a review. But we could really use some more. So please, I just want to help boost those numbers, and I need you guys to help me with that. Thank you, as always, for being here. No matter where you're listening or how you're listening, let's get into it. Let's get in sync. Okay. Marlon is officially joining the podcast as a co-host. Welcome, Marlon. You want to say anything? All right, that's all he's got today. Guys, we are less than 2 weeks away from the election, so while we like to do business in the front, party in the back, it feels like, at least over here, it feels like it's all business all the time. I feel a little stressed. I talked to some of my dog-owning friends / neighbors recently. We have this little area near the water where we'll go. It's 7 a.m, very early. We'll go out, and we have this crew of friends, of doggos and their owners. And I was like, the election, whatever. And this woman literally covered her head and her eyes and was like, I don't even want to think about it. I was shocked that people in DC are I don't even want to think about it, especially women. But alas, we're here to think about it. We're here to talk about it. And we're here to remember all of the crazy shit that has gone down since Donald Trump has stepped on the political scene. Today, we're diving into some truly explosive news that you might not have even heard about yet. And that is a new accuser who has come forward against former President Donald Trump, once again linking him to the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein in ways that we haven't seen before, and that I certainly haven't seen before. This latest revelation, I think, has the potential to reverberate not only through, hopefully, the legal system, but also through the 2024 presidential election, which again is in just 2 weeks' time. You're going to want to stick around for this one because, like I said, it's explosive and it has not been getting the coverage that it deserves. Call it an October surprise if you want, but that feels a little too flippant, a little too blasé for the severity of these allegations. On Wednesday night, The Guardian broke the news that a woman named Stacey Williams has come forward, accusing Donald Trump of sexually assaulting her in the 1990s. What makes this allegation particularly notable to me, aside from the shocking nature, is the connection to Jeffrey Epstein. This woman, Stacey Williams, claims that Jeffrey Epstein was directly involved in facilitating this encounter between herself and Donald Trump, opening a new and I would argue more sinister chapter in Trump's already well-documented association with a convicted sex offender. Serial sex offender, by the way. So today, let's break down what this new allegation means, the context of Trump's relationship with Epstein, and how this could potentially shake up the 2024 election as Trump is hoping to retake the White House. Plus, we will of course get into why the media isn't talking about this. Before we get into all of it, though, I just want to say it's crucial to remember that we're dealing with allegations here, okay? Donald Trump, like anyone else, is innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. But the significance of Stacey Williams coming forward lies in the broader pattern of accusations surrounding both Trump and Epstein, and the deep impact that all of this should have on the type of leaders that we elect up and down the ballot moving forward in this country. Now let's get started with some of those details from Stacey Williams' claim that The Guardian reported on. And by the way, Stacey Williams also talked about this experience in a Survivors for Harris press call earlier this week. So there's a woman, Hadley Duvall, who has been a Harris surrogate. She is a very brave, courageous young woman who is in her 20s and had a harrowing experience where she was being raped by her stepfather, and she was impregnated at the age of 12. And she talks about how luckily at that time, before Roe was overturned and before all of these Trump abortion bans, she had the reproductive care and access that she needed to save her life. Luckily, she's still around to tell that story. She is one of the women who heads up the Survivors for Harris organizing group. And so Stacey Williams talked about it in a press call with that group earlier this week, and she's also detailed these allegations in a new piece with The Guardian. So she alleges that she met Trump at one of Jeffrey Epstein's infamous parties in Palm Beach, Florida, sometime back in 1993, okay? According to Stacey Williams, she was just 20 years old at the time and had been lured to the party under the false pretense of meeting powerful people who could help her in her career. I know that a lot of women listening to this will relate to that. A lot of young, ambitious women can relate to wanting to get ahead by meeting powerful people, and usually the people in power are men. So there are usually very few avenues for us to even network with people who are women who are in positions of power. And then you add on the extra complicated layer of when there's this huge age gap between the young, ambitious women and the old, insidious, nasty men in power who only want to use them for their bodies and nothing more. Clearly, I get very worked up about this stuff, and for good reason. So listen, Stacey Williams was hoping, like so many of the other women caught in the crosshairs of disgusting men, like Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, she was hoping to break into the modeling industry, an aspiration that, again, Jeffrey Epstein was notorious. He was notorious for exploiting in many of the women who eventually came forward in their own lawsuits against him. You guys have seen this play out over the last several years. In her statement, Williams describes a situation that honestly mirrors a lot of those accusations of a lot of the other Epstein victims that we have heard from in the past. A luxurious setting, promises of opportunity and moving up in their career, and then being isolated, completely isolated with these men. She alleges that Trump assaulted her at this party in Palm Beach in 1993, with Jeffrey Epstein orchestrating and setting up this whole encounter. Okay, guys? The claim is harrowing in and of itself, but what makes it particularly damaging is the larger context of Trump's well-documented ties to Jeffrey Epstein, a man who, again, we all know has been convicted for sexually abusing minors and for running a sex trafficking ring that exploited vulnerable young women for the benefit of himself and his rich and powerful male friends. It's disgusting. The company you keep should matter at the very least. It should be problematic to so many voters that Trump has a well-documented connection and friendship and admiration for and with Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. Sex traffickers of minors. Williams says that she remained silent for years after this alleged incident happened with Trump because she was scared. She was scared. How many women stay quiet because of fear? I know that I have. I know that I personally have not spoken out about things or like told on certain people because I am actually afraid of the power that they wield, either in this industry or otherwise, and how they could ruin my life for daring to tell the truth about what happened between us. And these situations are nowhere near as serious as an allegation involving the former and hopeful future president, Donald Trump. So think about how scary it must be. Think about how scary it is when you're a young woman, you're isolated with men, there may be drugs or alcohol involved, at the very least coercion, gaslighting, manipulation. It is really difficult to stand up for yourself as a woman in this country, no matter what age you are, but it is a particularly difficult thing to do when you are young and you think you are the victim. You know you are the victim of abuse, but you have gotten into a situation where you're gaslighting yourself because society has been so good at gaslighting us throughout time. No, we're wrong. No, you don't remember that correctly. Well, what were you wearing? What were you drinking? How much did you have to eat that day? Are you sure that you ate enough relative to how much you were drinking? Why would you even show up in the first place? I mean, you were 20, you're an adult, so what's the problem? I mean, I don't know. Oh, it was so long ago. 3 decades? Oh, 30 years ago? It doesn't matter. Are you sure that you remember correctly? Well, why didn't you say something when it first happened? Who did you tell at the time? Oh, you didn't tell anyone? Well, why didn't you go to the police? Oh, you didn't go to the police? You didn't even tell your mom? You didn't tell your parents, your best friend? You didn't write it down in a journal? You didn't call him after? Why did he send you a letter? Why did he send you a postcard? Why were you still nice to him? Guys, I've legitimately had, I am not kidding I'm not kidding when I tell you this, and I need you to listen. Those questions are just off the top of the dome. Off the top of the dome as I am thinking about some of the things I genuinely have been asked by lawyers, by men, by other people, when detailing my own situations with bad, creepy, powerful men who have taken advantage and abused. It is exhausting thinking about how we have to continue to defend ourselves, to defend our right to exist autonomously, safely. Think about how many people will ask those questions about Stacey Williams and what's going on now. Think about how crazy it is that someone could come forward with an allegation this harrowing, and instead of believing women, or at least believing women enough to investigate further, being curious enough, caring enough rather, to be curious about what happened, people will shut it down. They'll shut her down. They will silence her. They will discredit her. They will drag her through the mud. Like I said, how many of you listening have even heard about this story? How many of you listening have even heard Stacey Williams' name? I was watching cable news this morning. I didn't see it covered by any of the major cable news networks. I didn't see it covered in any of the major Beltway newsletters. But like I said, Williams remained silent for years out of fear. It's a very familiar story. Fear of retribution, fear of being disbelieved, fear of facing a man as powerful as Donald Trump in court. Literally in legal court or in the court of public opinion. I wouldn't want to go against him. I really would not want to go against him, would you? Your word against Donald Trump's? Come on. Who's going to win? Who's going to win in something like that? And that is what is so crazy, you guys. We are literally in a situation where any allegation against Donald Trump, no matter how serious, ultimately just ends up as a he said, she said shrug. She said this, he says it didn't happen, moving on. What? How many people can face the number of scandals, the level of scandals that Donald Trump faces, and we all just shrug it off, move on? Clearly now, as we are approaching the 2024 election and Trump's political influence is growing rapidly, and it is a very real scenario that he could be the president of the United States, Williams felt it was time to come forward now. And if you have second thoughts about that timing, ask yourself to think about the worst person you know and have ever interacted with. Now think about holding a secret for them, holding a secret for decades that only benefits them to hold, okay? Now imagine that person, I don't know, wants to run your church, wants to run your community group, wants to be the CEO of your company, is in line to being the CEO of your company. And you believed that the secret you're holding involved behavior that is so disqualifying and dangerous to other people, you have to suddenly speak out to prevent this from happening to others. Doesn't seem so crazy, does it? Doesn't seem so crazy to decide to speak out later after living in decades of fear and silence and watching this person who has been accused of similar things just survive all of the political scandals. More than surviving, he thrives. He thrives amid political scandals. Okay, now let's take a step back and examine Trump's history with Jeffrey Epstein, because like I said, this is literally not the first time that we've heard their names mentioned together, and that alone should be problematic for anyone and would be problematic for any politician, let alone just like an American citizen, just like a normal average dude associated with Jeffrey Epstein. You'd be like, ew, what? Why? When? How? What? Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were known to move in the same elite social circles during the 1980s and the 1990s, mostly bopping between New York and Florida. They were both fixtures in the world of wealth and power, particularly in Palm Beach, Florida, where Epstein had his infamous mansion. Obviously, we all know also about Epstein Island. Trump has, of course, acknowledged knowing Epstein in the past. In fact, in a 2002 interview with New York Magazine, Trump famously said, "Oh yeah, I've known Jeff for 15 years. He's a terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." That is a direct quote. That comment hasn't aged well, to say the least. Speaking of, I'm going to put out an episode after this, you guys, going through the 13 most insane things that Donald Trump has said about women or been accused of doing to women. And there are so many things I've forgotten about. None of them have aged well. As more details about Epstein's criminal activities and weirdo, gross behavior came to light in the late 2000s and 2010s, that's when Trump began to distance himself from his former friend, only slightly. By the time Epstein was arrested in 2019, Trump denied having any significant relationship with him at all. Barely knew the guy. However, as you all have seen, I am certain, photographs of the two together and accounts from witnesses who were there with them paint an entirely different picture. Trump wasn't just some distant acquaintance of Epstein's, as he likes to paint himself out to be. They were close enough to have attended parties together, and Epstein was even seen at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach on many different occasions. One accuser, named Virginia Jeffrey, even claimed that she was recruited into Epstein's sex trafficking ring while she was working at Mar-a-Lago as a locker room attendant in the early 2000s. It's disgusting. But it's important to note that while Trump has denied any wrongdoing, this latest allegation from Stacey Williams could draw renewed attention to just how intertwined Trump and Epstein were during all those years. And let's not forget that the Trump campaign used one of Epstein's planes this campaign cycle, you guys, like just a few months ago. Trump and his campaign team used an airplane that was previously owned by Jeffrey Epstein. You can't make this up, and it is important again to look at the company you keep, the people you praise, and those you degrade. So where does all of this leave us today, right now? Legally, this is yet another serious claim added to, quite frankly, the growing list of very serious lawsuits and criminal cases that Trump is currently facing. Let's not forget that Trump is already looking at a civil fraud trial in New York, multiple criminal indictments related to his effort to overturn the 2020 election, and a defamation case brought by E. Jean Carroll, another woman who has accused him of sexual assault, which, by the way, that civil trial, the jury found him liable of sexual abuse against E. Jean Carroll. Stacey Williams' allegations bring an entirely new dimension to how we should understand the scope of Trump's legal battles. This isn't just about like an old business deal gone wrong or an attempt to interfere in the democratic process. This is a deeply personal and visceral accusation of sexual violence. Okay? And one that directly ties Trump to a man whose name has become synonymous with sexual exploitation. Politically, I think this should be a bombshell. Trump has built an almost unshakable base of support among Republicans, but new allegations like this should pose a serious threat to that support. There are a few reasons for this. First, as much as Trump tends to just shrug off legal scandals or sexual assault allegations, I think that things like this can cut deeper in 2024 than they have in previous elections. We saw in 2016 when the Access Hollywood tape was leaked, there was a very brief moment where even some Republican leaders privately thought that it might cost Donald Trump the election. Obviously, he survived that moment, but public sentiment has shifted a lot since then. I mean, we had the Me Too movement and a heightened awareness of sexual abuse now in a way that we just didn't have before. And so I feel like voters may not be so forgiving this time around. Second, this could complicate things for Trump's loyal supporters and colleagues. I mean, so far, no Republican has been able to stand up against Trump or any of his allegations. They've decided that instead of choosing the American people, they'd rather choose to defend Trump against anything that he says or does. These allegations, especially in what is the first presidential election since Roe was overturned, they should absolutely force other Republican candidates to take a stand. Either they will distance themselves from Trump on this issue, or they will risk alienating their own voters and constituents. And finally, like I mentioned earlier, it raises questions about what the media does and does not cover. Why aren't the major cable news shows and major papers covering this? Why aren't the Beltway newsletters covering this? Because the assumption, quite frankly, is that it won't move the needle, that it won't change voters' minds, it won't matter at the end of the day politically. But think about that for 1 second. When the media, the literal gatekeepers of information and those responsible for educating viewers, when the media suddenly decides that a massive allegation, one that takes courage to share publicly, by the way, isn't newsworthy, we are looking at a much bigger problem than Donald Trump. It is so disheartening and so discouraging to see the lack of coverage. While Trump has weathered many storms, this particular one I think should be given more media attention, especially in an election where women will ultimately make the difference, where women's lives, livelihoods, well-being, their future in this country, our future in this country is on the line. Shouldn't it be getting more coverage? Okay, so let's talk about what you can expect to happen next in all of this. Legally, I feel like Stacey Williams' case, in theory, could be taken up in the courts, but it's possible that she could maybe just join other civil lawsuits against Trump in some way. It's also possible that new accusers could come forward now that Williams has broken her silence. We have seen that in the past. It's like a dam breaks. When one person speaks, that gives other survivors the same courage, and that is why it's so important to speak out, even when it's hard. Epstein's victims have spoken out before about the long, quite frankly, painful process of coming forward with those stories. But again, it is so often the case that when one woman comes forward and speaks, others quickly find the courage to follow. Politically, I feel naive saying it, but it could be a tipping point. If Trump's past is suddenly thrust back into the spotlight with this new Epstein connection, it might not only affect his standing with some wary Republicans, but could also shift the dynamics with those swing voters, especially those women who are already attuned to the erratic behavior he's displaying in the final days of this campaign. However, it's also worth considering how Trump is going to keep handling this. In the past and now, he has denied every accusation of sexual misconduct, calling his accusers liars, claiming political motivations. He has said that they are not his type, which suggests that there is a type of woman who he would sexually assault. So something else to think about when you're parsing through Trump's words, as we all should be doing. But he's calling these women liars and acting like they have some sort of political motivation or some sort of motivation, as if there's personal gain to be had in coming forward with one of these harrowing accusations. There is no personal gain to be had with coming forward with something like this. It's likely that we'll just see his loyalists continue to try to discredit Stacey Williams and any other woman who might try to come up this close to the election. But honestly, with multiple legal battles already on his plate, he's now facing what, at the very least, you guys, Donald Trump is now facing what should be a reputational crisis that he can't shake off. Okay, so let's not let this just roll off his back like a bead of water, okay? As we move closer to the 2024 election, you guys, it's clear that both legal and personal controversies are going to play a major role in shaping the narrative in these final days for Trump's campaign, his future as president, his bid for the White House, whether his supporters stick by him or this opens up a crack in his once solid base is something that we'll have to keep an eye on. And I don't want to be so quick to say, like everyone else, that it just won't matter, quote unquote, because it's up to us to make it matter. It's literally up to us to make it matter. If we don't talk about it, or we let someone come forward with this courage and this story to just let it go to waste, that's crazy. We should care enough to explore, to be curious, to discuss. Don't you think? So guys, as always, thank you for listening to In Sync with Alexi. I am so grateful to have you here, and I can't believe that we are so close to the election. I will always be dedicated to keeping you informed on the stories that matter most and the stories that deserve your attention, especially those things that you're not going to be able to read about or hear about on TV because they're simply not being covered because other people are either too afraid to touch these topics or too jaded to see how and why they actually matter. Thank you as always. Stay informed, keep pushing, and most importantly, stay in sync. I'll see you guys next time. Let's get it. I love you. I love you guys. Let's get after it, okay? Until next time, I will see you so soon. Please leave me a comment and we will get together soon. Love you guys. Love you. Bye.